Hola, queridos aprendientes. Hello, dear students. Bienvenidos al curso básico de Lengua y Cultura Españolas. Welcome to the Basic Spanish Language and Culture course. Mi nombre es Akshay Kale, soy vuestro profesor de español para este curso en línea. My name is Akshay Kale and I'm your professor for this online Spanish course. Learning Objectives, los objetivos de aprendizaje. En este video vais a aprender a identificar y usar los verbos reflexivos en español. Usar de manera adecuada las preposiciones a, al, de, del, por en la descripción de la rutina diaria. In this video, you will learn to identify and use reflexive verbs in Spanish. Use the prepositions a, al, de, del, por properly in the description of the daily routine. Recap, repaso. Dear learners, in this video, first we'll do a quick recap of how to describe the daily routine in Spanish as well as how to speak about the days of the week and the location of daily activities in the day. So, let's talk about the daily routine, la rutina diaria o el día a día de Penélope Cruz, una actriz famosa española. Let's talk about the daily routine of Penélope Cruz, a famous Spanish actress. La famosa actriz española Penélope Cruz nos habla de su vida en Estados Unidos y de la Fundación Sabera en Calcuta con la que colabora. Penélope, ahora eres famosa en gran parte del mundo, pero trabajas mucho, ¿no? Penélope, you're now famous all over the world, but you work a lot, don't you? Respuesta, the answer. Sí, claro, trabajo 6 días a la semana y todos los días me levanto a las 5:30 de la mañana. Empiezo a rodar a las 7:30. Yes, of course, I work 6 days a week and every day I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I start shooting at 7:30 in the morning. Pero te levantas demasiado pronto, ¿no? But you get up too early, don't you? Bueno, es que siempre hago yoga y después un poco de gimnasia. Luego me ducho y desayuno tranquilamente. Well, the thing is that I always do yoga and a little bit of exercise. Later, I take a shower and I have breakfast at peace. Dear students, please note here that hacer gimnasia is to do exercise and ir al gimnasio is to go to the gym. So there's a difference between gimnasia and gimnasio. It's not the same, right? Hacer gimnasia, ir gimnasio. Ir al gimnasio. ¿Y a qué hora te acuestas? At what time do you go to bed? Pues también bastante pronto, hacia las 10 de la noche. Well, also rather early, around 10 at night. ¿Sales muy tarde de los estudios? Do you leave the studios very late? Depende. Normalmente a las 5 de la tarde, pero a veces vuelvo a casa a las 8 o a las 9 de la noche. Justo para cenar y acostarme. Depends. Usually at 5 in the evening, but sometimes I go home at 8 or at night or at 9 at night, just in time to have dinner and to go to bed. Sí, pido algo para cenar rápido y me voy a dormir. Yes, I order something to have dinner quickly and then I go to sleep. ¿Y en tu tiempo libre, qué haces? ¿Dónde vas? And in your free time, what do you do? Where do you go? Pues cuando puedo, escucho música. Repeat. Pues cuando puedo, escucho música y leo. También voy a clase de ballet 2 días a la semana. Y algunos fines de semana, mis amigos y yo salimos de Los Ángeles y vamos a diferentes lugares. Hacemos fotos. Me gusta mucho la fotografía. And in your free time, what do you do? Where do you go? Well, when I can, I listen to music and I read. I also go to ballet classes 2 days a week and some weekends. And on some weekends, my friends and I get out of Los Angeles Get out of Los Angeles, as it's called in Spanish. Queridos aprendientes. But in English it would be Los Angeles. We get out of Los Angeles and we go to different places. We click photos. I like photography a lot. Me gusta mucho la fotografía. Y también colaboras con una ONG. And you also work with an NGO, isn't it? You collaborate with an NGO. Well, yes, sí, con la Fundación Sabera. Es una ONG que está en Calcuta y que ayuda a niñas sin recursos. Penelope responds, yes, with the Sabera Foundation. It's an it's an NGO which is in Calcutta and it helps disadvantaged girls. Could you identify the infinitives of the verbs used in the example? For example, se despierta. What is the infinitive form of this verb, dear students? Se despierta, despertarse. Se levanta, levantarse. Now, these verbs are called reflexive verbs. And why are these verbs called reflexive verbs? And how to identify them? How to identify reflexive verbs? As you may have observed, among the verbs, some of the infinitives end in se. It indicates that the action is made by the person who receives it. These verbs are called reflexive verbs. Dear students, please pay attention to this explanation that the action is made by the person who receives it. That is why these verbs are called reflexive verbs and they take a reflexive pronoun. Reflexive verbs are used in reflexive constructions which consist of a verb plus a reflexive pronoun. The subject of the verb, a person or thing, performs and receives the action expressed by the verb. A verb is reflexive if the action the subject does is directed back to the subject. Study the following examples. Nos duchamos por la mañana. We shower in the morning. Siempre te miras al espejo. You always look at yourself in the mirror. So for example, dear students, nos duchamos por la mañana is because we shower, right? We shower ourselves. It's not as if our mother showers us. No, nuestra madre no nos ducha, ¿verdad? So that's why we say nos duchamos por la mañana. The first example literally says we shower ourselves. The ending in the present tense form duchamos indicates the person nosotros in the subject, as does the reflexive pronoun nos preceding the verb. The same is true for the second example, and the person tú indicated by the ending as in miras and the reflexive pronoun te, the object of the action. In other words, the subject and the object receiving the action are the same. Me afeito todos los días. We don't say I shave myself in English, right? But in it literally would be I shave myself every day. In the previous example, the person yo does the action afeito. The subject yo receives the action. The pronoun me indicates the subject, that is the receiver of the action. How to conjugate reflexive verbs? To conjugate a reflexive verb, use the corresponding reflexive pronoun. Use the following model to form reflexive verbs in the present tense. Duchar, se, to take a shower. The se is very important, dear students. Queridos aprendientes, es muy importante prestar atención a la terminación, a ese pronombre se, el pronombre reflexivo, ¿verdad? Son infinitivos, verbos infinitivos, infinitive verbs which end in se. Yo me ducho. Tú te duchas. Él, ella, usted se ducha. Nosotros, nosotras nos duchamos. Vosotros, vosotras os ducháis. Ellos, ellas, ustedes se duchan. Study the pronouns and remember that the forms of the reflexive pronouns are as follows. Me, myself. Te, yourself. Nos, ourselves. Os, yourselves. Se can be yourself, himself or herself. Se can also be yourselves or themselves in the plural form. The persons usted, ustedes, él, ella and ellos, ellas have the same reflexive pronoun. Se. Reflexive pronouns are placed immediately before a conjugated verb. How to conjugate reflexive verbs? So, here we have three examples of reflexive verbs: levantarse, to get up; despertarse, to wake up; and ducharse, to take a shower. For example, yo me levanto. Tú te levantas. Él, usted se levanta. Nosotros, nosotras nos levantamos. Vosotros, vosotras os levantáis. Ellos y ustedes se levantan. The students, please make note, por favor, prestar atención al pronombre me, te, se, nos, os, se. So these verbs, dear students, would not have any meaning. Their usage would be completely wrong without these corresponding reflexive pronouns. Despertarse, to wake up. Me despierto. Te despiertas. Se despierta. Nos despertamos. Os despertáis. Se despiertan. Ducharse is to take a shower. Me ducho. Te duchas. Se ducha. Nos duchamos. Os ducháis. Se duchan. Other reflexive verbs. Lavarse la cara, las manos, el pelo. To wash one's face, hands and hair. Peinarse, to comb. Peinarse, el pelo. Right? Yo me lavo, tú te lavas, él a usted se lava, nosotros, nosotras nos lavamos, vosotros, vosotras os laváis, ellos, ellas, ustedes se lavan. Yo me peino, tú te peinas, él a usted se peina, nosotros, nosotras nos peinamos, vosotros, vosotras os peináis, ellos, ellas, ustedes se peinan. Read the following sentences carefully. Alberto se levanta a las 6 de la mañana. Alberto gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Alberto levanta la silla a las 6 de la mañana. Alberto picks up the chair at 6 o'clock in the morning. Alberto se despierta a las 6 de la mañana. Alberto wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Alberto despierta a su hermano a las 6 de la mañana. Alberto wakes his brother up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Who carries out the action? Who what receives the action? Right, dear students? Alberto se levanta a las 6 de la mañana. Alberto makes and carries out the action. He himself receives it. Alberto levanta la silla a las 6 de la mañana. Alberto carries out the action. The chair receives it. Alberto se despierta a las 6 de la mañana. Alberto carries out the action, he himself receives it. Alberto despierta a su hermano a las 6 de la mañana. Alberto carries out the action, his brother receives it. Therefore, in the sentence 1, we use a reflexive verb. Verbos reflexivos irregulares. There are 3 kinds of irregular verbs according to the change. Cambia a IE. Despertarse, me despierto, te despiertas, for example, would be an example of these irregular verbs, which we'll study in the later videos as well. Cambia a I, vestirse, me visto, te vistes. Vestirse is the classic example of this sort of irregularity. And O cambia a UE. Como acostarse becomes me acuesto, not me acosto. Me acuesto, te acuestas. Ojo, pay attention. Please note that not all the verbs can work as reflexive and non-reflexive. For example, think about desayunar, to have breakfast. It cannot work as a reflexive verb, can it? Because you cannot eat yourself a breakfast, or can you? Right? Now let's look at the conjugation of the irregular verbs, los verbos irregulares. Acostarse, to go to bed, is yo me acuesto, tú te acuestas, él a usted se acuesta, nosotros, nosotras nos acostamos, vosotros, vosotras os acostáis, ellos y ustedes se acuestan. Vestirse, to get dressed. Me visto, te vistes, él a usted se viste, nosotros, nosotras nos vestimos, vosotros, vosotras os vestís, ellos y ustedes se visten. Right? So again, dear students, vestirse, to get dressed, and the stem changes here. The stem of the verb in vestir, A changes to E. The E changes to I. Despertarse, here the A changes to EA. E changes to IE in the stem. Right? So despertarse is to wake up. Yo me despierto, tú te despiertas, él a usted se despierta, nosotros nos despertamos, vosotros os despertáis, ellos de ustedes se despiertan. Ojo, please pay attention. Note that this irregularity happens only for yo, tú, él, ella, usted, and ellos de ustedes. While nosotros and vosotros do not change at all. That's why we have seen that these forms are regular. Look at the sentences below. Me lavo mis manos, yo ducho todos los días. Wrong. The correct sentence would be me lavo las manos, yo me ducho todos los días. You just cannot say me lavo mis manos. It has to be the definite article, las, the definite plural article, the definite plural feminine article, el artículo femenino plural determinado. Me lavo las manos. Sophia is telling us about her daily routine. Dear students, let's read the text given below. Por la mañana me levanto a las 7:30. So what is Sophia saying here, dear students? Por la mañana me levanto a las 7:30. In the morning I get up at 7:30. Primero me lavo la cara y después desayuno. First I wash my face and later I have breakfast. Después de desayunar me ducho. After having breakfast I take a shower. Luego me visto, me peino y por último me cepillo los dientes. Later I get dressed, I comb my hair, and lastly I brush my teeth. So dear students, please pay attention here to the way these reflexive verbs are used, right? Me visto, me peino, right, which is to comb one's hair, and me cepillo los dientes, I brush my teeth. A las 9 en punto salgo de casa. I leave my house at 9 o'clock sharp because, porque a las 9:30 empiezo a trabajar. I start working at 9:30 in the morning. A la 1:30 como, I eat or I have lunch, as we have said. I have lunch at 1:30 and a las 7 de la tarde termino de trabajar. I finish working at 7 in the evening. Dear students, please pay attention to this fact, this cultural difference. In Spain, a las 7 at 7 would still be in the evening, right? Whereas in India, you would obviously say at 7 in the night mostly, and in many parts of the world, but in Spain, it would be a las 7 de la tarde, right? Also, termino de trabajar. Pay attention to the use of the preposition, termino de trabajar. Antes de volver a casa, normalmente doy un paseo por el parque o voy a nadar. Before coming back home, usually I take a walk in the park or I go swimming. Voy a nadar, doy el paseo. Pay attention to these verbs. Doy es dar, voy es ir. These are irregular verbs. Also pay attention to the fact, to this expression, antes de volver a casa, before coming back home. Mi familia y yo cenamos a las 9 de la noche. My family and I have dinner at 9 in the night. Vemos la tele y yo me acuesto a las 11:30 de la noche. We watch television and I go to bed at 11:30 in the night. Right? So, a las 11:30 de la noche, pay attention again to this preposition, de la noche. It's not en, it's not any other preposition, just de, right? In Spanish, that's how it is. Vemos la tele, we watch television. La tele is to watch television, ver la tele, y yo me acuesto a las 11:30 de la noche. So, dear students, please pay attention to the use of these different reflexive verbs in order to describe one's daily routine. ¿No? Prestemos atención al uso de estos verbos reflexivos para describir el día a día. Now, dear students, let's practice whatever we have done so far regarding these reflexive verbs, right? So, mi hermana hueco el pelo cada mes. My sister dash her hair every month. Again, dear students, please pay attention to the use of the determinate article of the definite article el pelo, right? So what is the correct answer, dear students? The correct answer here is mi hermana se corta el pelo cada mes. As you have seen, we use the reflexive verb cortarse el pelo, right? Mi madre hueco muy elegante para la cena. What would be the correct answer, dear students? Mi madre se viste muy elegante para la cena. So again, dear students, as we see, vestirse is an irregular verb. It's an irregular verb which is reflexive as well. So we have to say mi madre se viste muy elegante para la cena. Tú muy tarde todos los días, right? So here, dear students, as we see, the verb which we have to fill in is acostarse, right? You or you dash get up very late every day. So what is the correct answer, dear students? The verb is acostarse, the form is tú. What would be the correct answer? The correct answer is tú te acuestas muy tarde todos los días. Mi esposo hueco cada mañana. My husband dash every morning. So the verb we have to fill in here is afeitarse, to shave. So what would be the correct form, dear students? It's mi esposo would be third person, right? The third person singular. So mi esposo se afeita cada mañana. Yo siempre para salir. I always dash in order to go out. Yo me maquillo para salir. I put on makeup in order to go out. Nosotros siempre hueco antes de comer. We always dash before eating. So the verb we have to fill in, dear students, is lavarse las manos, right? To wash one's hands. So what is the correct answer here? The correct answer would be nos lavamos las manos antes de comer. Summary of the session, resumen de la sesión. Dear learners, in today's session we have learned how to use reflexive verbs. We also learned how to identify them and how to use different prepositions correctly. The prepositions such as a, al, de, etc. Thank you, dear students.